ladies and gentlemen, to episode number 66 of Let's Go Racing with David Starr. Tyler Jones here with you. So glad to have you with us. Coming up on today's show, we're going to be joined by Doug Richert, a crew chief that has spent a lot of years in all levels of NASCAR. We will get the chance to talk to Doug about his career and what he's up to nowadays. And later on, we'll have our news and notes segment for the latest happenings in the world of NASCAR and all of motorsports. And then we'll end the show with our Ask David segment with questions that you have submitted to us. We will react to those at the end of the show. As always, we are presented by TicketSmarter. TicketSmarter came aboard as the primary sponsor this year on David's Ford Mustang. And we want to tell you a little bit more about what they do. TicketSmarter is a national ticket resale marketplace with tickets to over 125,000 live events, including NASCAR and other forms of motorsports. Fans can get tickets to every NASCAR Cup, Xfinity, and Camping World Truck race throughout the season. Visit TicketSmarter.com. That's TicketSmarter.com. David Starr joins us right now off of a weekend in Darlington, South Carolina. David, how did Darlington treat you on Mother's Day weekend?
Man, it was awesome. Anytime you're racing at the historical Darlington Raceway throwback weekend, it was just so cool to see all the throwbacks. Hell, I think Chase Elliott ran a Jimmy Means throwback. I thought that was really cool, and just all the different throwbacks, and it's just so cool to see the different race cars that we saw when we were growing up racing in NASCAR, you know, and what they look like and what the crew members are wearing. And, a lot of the TV personalities and the marketing, the PR girls and everybody just wore I saw a lot of bell bottoms, jeans, and man, it was just awesome. There's so much history there at Darlington, and it's really cool that NASCAR and the Darlington Raceway, really preserves history, brings it back for a race. And I just thought that's cool. And now
it's like stepping back in time, wasn't it?
It's amazing. We got Doug Richert going to join us here in a little bit. I remember as a kid, Doug Richert won the 19, I think he was, we'll hear, there's so much history behind Doug, but, you think about Doug and there's so many throwbacks that he could be part of, 1980, champion crew chief with Dale Earnhardt. But man, it was just a great weekend, and I was just glad to be there racing. It was awesome.
And you had the throwback car that you ran to Bobby's scheme back in '94, I believe it was. Mm-hmm. And I saw Jason Miller rocking the old fire suit from Bobby. Tell us about that.
It was pretty cool, man. Before I even made it to NASCAR in 1990, I think I made it in 1998, 97. And I was a fan of Bobby Daughters. I didn't know Bobby, but, going to a lot of races and watching the Busch Series and stuff like that, Bobby Daughter, that Daughter name just kind of stuck out. And I remember back in the early 90s when I was watching on TV and go to some NASCAR races to see the 08 car Bobby Daughter would drive. Didn't know Bobby, but I remember seeing the Hyde's tool car, and talking with my team and Maggie Fix, my PR person. And, it's just kind of cool to be able to have a throwback to the team motor that you're employed by, that you're driving for, and it was neat. And speaking of Jason Miller, my crew chief, it was awesome, man. Bobby had a lot of stuff back from 1993, 92 that he brought to the racetrack, and it was cool to see. And he brought his uniform, his Hyde Tools uniform from that year that we're going back to. And I asked Bobby, why don't you wear that thing and come to pit road and take some pictures? It'd be kind of cool. He said, David, I probably shouldn't say this, but he said, don't fit me no more. So anyway, Jason Miller put it on, man, and he was so proud. It was just cool, and just our throwback was awesome. But just the whole sport of NASCAR, we had Matty D on last week, and to see his throwback to Sterling Marlin, the Coors Light car all those years. And there was just so many, man. It was just a cool weekend. It was awesome.
Dominic Aragon of the RacingExperts.com joins us now. And Dom, I got to tell you, I'm 25 now. I'll turn 26 this month.
Man, you're old.
I felt old for a little bit this weekend because William Byron was running the Flames paint scheme, and I'm like, that's my childhood right there. I mean, I was rooting on Jeff Gordon every week in the Flames paint scheme. The Rainbow Warrior car was even before my time. You know, I mean, seeing that on the track, I'm like, this can't be a throwback yet.
Jeff Gordon's flame car was before your time.
No, the Rainbow car.
Okay.
No, I agree, Tyler. We were watching
for me and Doug. Come on, man. Hell.
We were watching the race here on Mother's Day, and I remember pointing out to my mom, because she used to watch NASCAR off and on casually, and said, "Hey, you remember that car?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, I remember that paint scheme." I'm like, it wasn't that long ago, right? It doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but 2008 was the last time that car hit the track. And there for a second, Tyler, seeing that DuPont or Exalta Flames paint scheme leading the charge at Darlington and coming down to the wire to almost win, it had that shades of Darlington 2007 when Jeff Gordon won on Mother's Day.
Yeah, that was really cool to see. And speaking of which, let's talk about that real fast, how that race ended up playing out. Joey Logano gets the win, moves William Byron out of the way. Probably didn't need to move him out of the way, but he felt like that he owed William some payback. David, what was your reaction to the events that unfolded there at the end of that race?
Well, I was there. So I was there at the race and sitting in the stands and watching it. And Joey Logano had the dominant car at the end. He was coming. And
I loved his scheme too.
Yeah, he had a great scheme. And coming off turn two, I think on that last restart, William Byron, I mean, when you come off turn two, you're so tight and, man, you're digging so hard, and there's not a lot of room there for two cars. We can run side by side, but, man, it's pretty intense. And sometimes you run out of room, and sometimes not on purpose. That you rub up against the outside car, and he rubs up against the wall. Everybody makes it through the corner, and a lot of time you don't even make it through the corner. It's a very tough corner to come off of it side by side. And looking and seeing the restart, a replay on a television that you could see in the infield that pointed to the stands, it didn't look like that William Byron did that on purpose. That was just a racing thing. You know what I mean? It happens. Nobody wrecked. It's pretty intense. You only got 3 or 4 laps left, 5 laps, whatever it was. And that's just a racing deal. I don't think it was intentional by William Byron's fact. I wasn't driving the race car, but I pretty much know it wasn't intentional.
Yeah.
But anyway, William Byron's went on to take the lead and grab the lead. And then, Joey was coming and he had such a fast race car. I don't think he needed to kind of do a bump and run, but that was a crash and run, really. You know what I mean? And, he did it. It was perfected perfectly, but it was a little bit much. And like you said, Tyler, it didn't need to happen. I think if he could have obviously passed him because his car was so much better, I think they would have put on a hell of a race for the fans that last lap that were coming to the white flag. And but I didn't think he needed to do it. You know what I'm saying? And he said he was just paying him back for William Byron putting him in the wall, but William didn't do that on purpose. So anyway, it was just interesting. The fans were going crazy. They were booing. People were cheering, and now ever since that race Sunday happened, that's all I've heard. Working at the race shop today, Team Texas race shop, and being at our SS Green Light shop yesterday in Charlotte, that's all I've heard about is, Joey Logano and William Byron. How did what's everybody's opinion and thoughts on it? But anyway, my personal opinion is he could have passed him clean.
Well, and Dominic, what's so interesting is, I was watching that race live, and Bill Elliott's the guest analyst, and there's like 15 laps to go, I think it is. And he's declaring the race over. He's like, well, Williams got this one. For only that to happen, for only that exciting finish to occur there. And then the post-race interview with William Byron, calling out Joey, saying he was an idiot and a moron. And then we get the audio later that he's dropping F-bombs about it and such. I mean, we've never seen that side of William Byron before. I loved seeing that side of Willie B. Liberty University might not like it, but I loved it.
Exactly. They show the raw emotion. I think sometimes we talk about how drivers are missing that raw emotion. We got some raw emotion. That interaction he had with Jeff Gordon when he climbed out of the race car, that was as real as it gets. That's in the moment. He just lost the race 2 minutes prior. That's how he felt on pit road. We need more of that.
You know what that's called?
Passion.
What's that called?
Tyler just said it. It's passion. You know, we want to win. We're that close. It's just passion, man. You're madder than hell. You didn't win. I mean, it's good for the sport. You know, I mean, everybody's talking about it. I really
learning the David Starr vocabulary.
Well, I would have thought that, I mean, it's very controversial, but Joey Logano was going to win the race. It's interesting that he chose to do it in that fashion. You know what I mean? I just don't think, I think 90% or 95% of the other drivers wouldn't have done it that way. But anyway, we're all talking about it. It was, and we'll see a lot of passion out of a kid that does good every week and has won cup races. And nobody said, man, it's interesting that, hey, this guy does have a heartbeat, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He does get pissed off.
Yeah.
And it was cool. But, man, Darlington was just awesome. I mean, Tyler, you just talked about it. Bill Elliott, he was in the broadcast booth. And
Richard Petty.
Man, you got to talk to Bobby Labonte and spend some talk to Red Farmer, Waddell Wilson. I mean, it was just Donnie Allison and Bobby Allison. It was just, Mark Martin was there. It was just really cool, and hell, we think we'd see Doug Richert there, because he's kind of one of those Hall of Famers, been around forever, you know what I mean? And but it was just cool to see, see Bill Elliott there, and it was just, man, what a great weekend. Great weekend.
It was. Dominic, tell us about our next guest.
Yeah, I have the pleasure of introducing our next guest here on Let's Go Racing. And I believe, Tyler, our first repeat guest. Really exciting. We have
the very first one. Yes, it took us 66 episodes to get here, but this is the guy that we wanted back first.
Very fitting, right? We had him on last April, I believe. David, you were working really close with him. This is a gentleman who has worked in the sport pretty much his entire professional career. He hails from California, won a championship with Rod Osterlund and Dale Earnhardt in 1980 at the ripe age of, I believe, 18 years old. Doug Richert on the show. Doug, thank you so much for joining us this week on Let's Go Racing. Good to have you back.
Hey guys, I'm glad to be back. I'm glad I'm a repeat customer of you guys.
Yeah, Doug, what's been keeping you busy the last calendar year since the last time we had you on?
Oh boy, well, some racing and then a lot of being Nurse Ratchet, for my wife. So we got a lot of things going on. It seems like I'm so busy right now. It's like, man, I'm not sure I have time to go to work.
Yeah. So last we caught up with you, right? You were working with MBM Motorsports. You were working with David on the Xfinity and Cup side of stuff. And the last weekend you guys worked together was the Bristol weekend last year.
Yeah, that was good. I enjoyed working with Carl Long and his wife Dee Dee. They're great people. Fun to be around. They go about it how they have the means and the fundings to do it. And we tried our best with what we had to work with. And I enjoyed it, just being able to set up most all the cars. I worked on pretty much all the cars at the time, getting them pulled down, keeping notes on start as far as that goes, and sending guys to the track, and then also taking a car myself to the track. So that was different. I enjoy that part. Staying back is not a bad thing. Just keeps me close to home for several different reasons. But yeah, it was all good. But at one point, I was thought I could, get ahead a little bit and not have to, sit home during the winter, because, Carl didn't have the funding to keep everybody on full time, all winter long. So I decided I was going to take another job with an ARCA team that was starting up. And I was like, well, okay, they're starting up. They're going to need to work all winter. They said they were. Yeah, we agreed on everything. And then the Saturday before the Monday I was supposed to start, the guy decided to skip town. Left. No sign, no nothing, haven't heard a peep. And since that point, I've been home. Being Nurse Ratchet with Robin.
That's crazy, Doug. Well, I mean, amazing that you're sitting at home, just because the knowledge that you've forgotten, all these different racing teams, I'm just so surprised because, man, you bring so much to an organization with the knowledge and the experience that you have. And, you know, I understand we both worked for Carl Long last year, and, you know, and you do the best you can under the circumstances. Carl's a great guy, Dee Dee, his wife, and, you know, Carl's a survivor, but it ain't like Carl's a big powerhouse team. It ain't like he's got tons and tons of funding. So, you know, he reaches out to a guy like Doug Richert, brings him on, takes his knowledge. But, you know, when you don't have the best equipment out there and, you know, you're working on kind of a shoestring budget, man, you're just doing the best you can with what you got. And Doug set up most of the race cars. But, you know, you take a guy like Doug who has all that knowledge and winning championship crew chief, but you're still, you know, you only have so many drawers in the toolbox with stuff to use.
Yeah.
And I think Doug and Carl Long, myself, and everybody that worked at MBM Motorsports last year, we probably overachieved for what we really had to work with, you know. But to hear Doug speak that he was going to take another job, because a lot of the racing teams, Doug brought up a good point. A lot of the racing teams don't have the funding to keep all their employees and their crew chiefs and everybody employed over the winter time.
Right.
So Doug was just trying to take care of his family, make sure that he was, you know, working throughout the winter, because you got Christmas, Thanksgiving, and everything, you know, the bills don't stop. And so he was trying to better himself, take care of his family, and it ended up backfiring on him. You know what I mean? Which is horrible, you know?
That it did.
Yeah. You know, I mean, but man, Doug, how many times have we heard that? I mean, it's just, man, we hear it year after year.
It's a sad reality in this sport.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a shame. You know, it's kind of discouraging from my side. I feel like I always give 100% with whoever I was with. You know, funded teams, non-funded team. I always tried. I wasn't like I, you know, just said, well, yeah, we're going to run 20th. I still tried something different. Still wanted to do something better. And that's what I enjoyed about it, was you have those opportunities to tune it just a little bit better. You know, we had a good run last year at Darlington with Timmy.
Yeah.
Fall race. And me and Carl talked about that the other day. Yeah. We were just making sure that he knew what we had in the car. I double checked in what we had in the car, and I said, yeah, that's what we had in the car. And, you know, I'm not real sure, you know, if that's what they went with or whatever. Hopefully they did, you know, because that car was really good. It was a bad reflection on us because we you know, we didn't have all the tires right at our disposal. So it came down to one of those situations where we left them out, and we only had a few laps on the tires, but I mean, we were running inside the top 15 all day long, and it was a good long run car. So I was like, okay. And then, of course, Darlington, you always want to have good tires on.
Absolutely.
But, you know, I needed those tires for the next segment, right? Or the next phase of it. So we left them out, and everybody's, oh man, why'd you stay out and all that? And then we broke a transmission right on the restart, of all things. I mean, we weren't going to be as good as the guys with new tires, because you never are.
Right.
But were we going to be crashed and wrecked up and in behind the wall? No. I mean, we would have fell back. I knew we would have fell back. We were planning our, you know, direction of where we were going, you know, against the new tires. We weren't going to try to hold them up. But when the transmission broke, it just made us look even worse, you know. I was like, oh, darn. Now, that was one I felt like we would have had a really good day.
Hey, Doug, what do you call that? Racing?
If it'll happen, it will happen.
Yeah. Hey, so, man, Doug, I got a question, man. So Darlington, throwback weekend at Darlington, you've been a part of it for years. You know, I think of Waddell Wilson, he was there, and you're looking at Red Farmer and the Allisons, and you know, Bobby Labonte and Bill Elliott. I mean, man, you know, as much as history and the throwback of those guys that we've watched forever, I mean, you're right there with them, man. I mean, it's amazing that you wasn't there, what's amazing to me that you're not in the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? I mean, you look at your credentials and what you did with the late great Dale Earnhardt. It's amazing that you wasn't at Darlington representing the sport. You know what I mean? Because I don't know. I just a lot of history behind Doug Richert. You know what I mean? So
well, that was one of my look forwards to, because of course I've got a collection of a lot of throwbacks. I think I've got a uniform of about everybody that I ever worked with in any fashion or form.
Wow.
So yeah, I'd have to just go to the attic here and see what I wanted to pull out, or or whose paint scheme or whatever we could get, to look right or whatever, or just pull the belt buckle and Dale's boots he gave me with the championship coat. I wore that down there one year. I could have did that, I guess, But, it's not that I didn't want to be there. It would be different if I had a responsibility there as far as running a team. But when I have to turn around and leave my wife sitting here by herself, with the condition with her and her cancer and stuff that we're dealing with and her sicknesses. And it was just kind of hard for me to feel good about, I'm going to go take off to Darlington and go walk around the garage area. Of course, I should have been down there looking for a job, right? But, I got to take care of my wife too. So it's a double-edged sword.
You're a good man. That's all. Hey, man, you were where you supposed to be. You know what I mean? Y'all agree, guys?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Man, taking care of your wife and what y'all been through, man. You're a great man, Doug.
Well, Doug, speaking of throwbacks, just a couple of weeks ago at Talladega, we saw Jeffrey Earnhardt bring back the 3-car with Richard Childress, Larry Mack, and Earnhardt in it. Just from a spectator point of view, somebody that has that connection with Dale and the 3-car and such, how cool was that to see Jeffrey run the 3-car, run up front there at Talladega like that?
That was really cool. I enjoyed that. I worked with Jeffrey some. Jeffrey drove our car over there at BK Racing, for a while. And, so we spent some time together. We didn't have great results, but, we went and did the best we could with what we had. Mm-hmm. And to watch him almost pull that off, that would have topped it off if he could have won that race. And, you don't get any closer than what he was. He was second. Yeah. He was only the first loser. Right. When you got to go way back in the field there, to see where you finished, but he was right there. You just needed another sniff.
Yeah. So Doug, look at having you on our podcast is just, I don't know, it's a big honor, and there's so much to Doug Richert. You've done so much in the sport. What comes to mind? What stands out? What are you most proud of? I mean, for somebody that's done so much and won so many races and the championships and and all the greats that you have worked with. I mean, Dale Earnhardt. I mean, and just on and on. And what stands out? What are some of the accomplishments that you're most proud of that you can share with us?
Well, I mean, obviously just being able to work around all of those guys that we've been talking about, unfortunately, Junior Johnson and the Darrell Waltrip days, we don't have Junior around anymore. And then we lost Flossie. And, I was up there for 4 years, when you're around these people and then they start, passing away, it brings some reality to how fortunate I was to get the experience of working at juniors and helping them work on the crap spreaders to go hook the mule to the Jeep to go plow the garden, and I got to tell you this story.
Yeah, tell us.
The funniest thing I ever saw was when I was at juniors working. So there was a lower shop at the time because when we started Neil Bonnet's team, I left Darrell's side at that time because we had the Budweiser, 2 different Budweiser schemes and all that. Well, we were down in the lower shop with Neil's stuff. And Darrell's stuff was still up top. And I looked out the window and I knew they were getting ready to plant the garden. And I look up there, and here's the Jeep coming up the driveway, but he's got the mule hooked to the front of the Jeep. Randy Calls is in the Jeep, working the steering wheel and the brake and stuff, and Junior sitting on the hood with the reins going, yeah, yeah, because the mule was acting up. He was too energetic and all. He says, well, I'll fix it. Hooks him to the Jeep, and he makes him drag him up around the house. Then he came back and plowed the garden.
Wait a minute. You talking about a real mule?
Yeah, that's it. He didn't get his tractor to do it. He hooked up the reins and he hooked the plow and walked and rode behind the plow with the mule. Well, he wouldn't act right, so he hooked it to the Jeep and made him pull him up around the shop.
Wow, man. What a story, man.
It was it was nothing. Like it was just fun. It was fun being around Junior and Flossie at the time, because it was just, there was no script. I mean, we would get a call on the intercom. Everybody, let's go out to the road. We're moving cows. So here's everybody that works for Junior, and they make a line in between two fields, because I want to take the cows out of this field and put them in the other. Well, we made the walkway for them in between the two fields, kept all the cows, and that was our duties there. You just never know what you were going to be doing.
From freaking Junior Johnson, the famous, legendary car owner, race car driver. I'm just
did it all.
Amazing to hear this story, man. I mean, you got Darrell Waltrip, Neil Bonnet, two drivers, Budweiser. And this they come over the microphone and tell everybody to come out to the field to make a pathway for the cows.
Stop what you're doing. We've got to go move these cattle.
That's nuts.
And you know, one thing about it, we didn't have to do that with the chickens. They're already in their own house.
I was not expecting to hear that story today, but that's what makes this podcast.
Well, you know, half this stuff I can't even remember. And then all of a sudden, you know, little piece in the brain trips and goes, yeah, the mule.
Doug, the last time we had you on, we had so much feedback of people loving what you had to say about Earnhardt and such. And, you know, we talked about Jeffrey running the 3 earlier. So I got to ask you then, as a follow-up, what is your favorite Dale Earnhardt memory, your favorite Dale Earnhardt story?
Well, there's a couple, and I forget exactly what we talked about the last time. But, you know, we were both young when we started. You know, I started hanging around him in was 78. He ran 5 races for us, and you could only run 5 without messing up your rookie eligibility there.
Was that something that was important to him?
Well, he wanted to be, you know, he didn't want to waste it. He wanted to get experience, but you know, next year we turned around and he was Rookie of the Year in 79 and won our first race at Bristol. Also quit smoking in Victory Lane at Bristol because I told the shop, I said, the first race we win, then I'm going to quit smoking. So I did. Never touched one since. I was
honestly, wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so then, you know, everything kept moving on.
How much did you smoke before then?
Well, of course, we had our Winston cigarettes, you know, that was too plentiful and at our just available for us all to have, you know. So, you know, of course, you know, I'm cool, you know, yeah. Anyhow, but, you know, we got over that phase there. And then, you know, we hung around a lot. As we were getting going, I mean, it was nothing for us. So we went and bought a pair of 175 Yamahas, little dirt bikes. That's identical. And we would just go ride through the woods, you know, and the water was down in the lake, we'd go right under his dock and, right across pipes in between fields, and I kind of grew up on motorcycles. I was always on a motorcycle, or I was riding wheelies around the block in California on my bicycle. So it's just kind of normal for me. And I always did that stuff, but we would just hop on those things and just go be ourselves. There was no show.
It's crazy to hear this, just because, all of us, myself, Tyler, Dominic, it's like, you act like it's no big deal. And we're thinking, man, we can't believe that, y'all got, 175 Hondas or Yamahas or whatever, and y'all just cruising around acting like kids, acting crazy, like it's no big deal.
Well, Dale liked to have fun. He liked to have fun, and he always did everything to the best of his ability. Whether it was when I was pulling him when he was in the tube and I was driving the boat, and of course, what you try to do, you make him try to jump that wake in the back, right? And see if he can hang on. So, but, we did a lot of water skiing together, tubing. We would even come sometimes, he would let me fly back with him. He was renting a plane at the time, even back then. And we could get back in time enough, like go run Dover and races over. We could make it back home and still have time to go hit the water and go skiing.
That really
too cool.
Yeah. We'd come back that evening and just take a quick lap around. And of course, he had his house on the lake, and the dock, everything was right there, so it was convenient. I don't know if you ever saw that little Dale movie.
Oh yes,
it was a CD, and at the time, he went to go pull Dale Jr. up out of the water. And he got up and he fell back and he goes, "Daddy, you hurt my butt." It was just, this little stuff, right? But all through the years, as things grew and it grew up, and, with Dale, we were good. And he said, "Well, if we ever get married, I'd like for you to be my best man at my wedding." He said, "Okay." So he was. And he was good to us, he just helped us kind of organize the wedding and all that stuff. And when that all came around, and then, when we had to deal with Dale's death and all, that was like a bummer, right? It's a memory that they'll never take out of my mind, what we did together, the fun we had, the things he did, in things I learned from them. Just, you learn from your surroundings, right? You're as good as the people you got around you.
Well,
it's an old thing.
The thing about that too, Doug, like hearing your relationship with Dale, I've talked with drivers who race against Dale in that era, like Jeff Bodine, right? He was strictly business. I've talked to a lot of drivers today, and it's a strictly business relationship with drivers and crew chiefs. So I'm curious, what made your guys' relationship different or special to be able to have that bond outside of the racetrack?
Well, would it be different nowadays? Yes. The whole sport of where we were to where we are now, we're a much higher profile sport. We're well seen, well known. Nobody knows what anybody does. Everybody knows everything. And back then, we didn't have camera phones, and there was no one taking pictures of us being stupid and riding across the pipe on a motorcycle or whatever. But that was normal. That was normal for us. We like having fun. We like driving dirt bikes. So, but when we lost Dale there, and we came up and being involved with another Earnhardt, which, Dale Jr. is, well, so when we decided, I think it was our 25th or 30th anniversary or something like that, we were going to renew our vows, and Robin had told me about it, and I said, yeah, well, we'll do it. I'm good. She set everything up and all that. So at the time we started to renew our vows, and I didn't know anything about it, but all of a sudden I felt a tap on my shoulder, and I turned around. It was Dale Jr. Robin had set it up with Dale Jr. and Kelly to time it just right to where they could show up right when we were up there in front of the preacher, because they wanted to stand in for Dale. So Dale Jr. stood in for Dale since he was the best man at my wedding. Well, Dale Jr. came and followed it up for redoing our vows. And then that really got me. You know, it was one of those things.
That's moving.
And never forget.
It speaks so much about Dale Jr. too, you know, of carrying on his dad's legacy and such. That's unbelievable. To follow up on that, you know, Doug, you knew him as the individual, Dale Sr., you know, of who he was on a personal level that 99.9% of folks don't get to see. You know, we knew him as the intimidator and the public persona and such. How different was the man the public knew and the way that he portrayed himself compared to the Dale Sr. that you knew?
Well, you know, obviously not everybody knew what he did. He wasn't the super tough guy all the time. It was nothing for him. And, you know, these are all stories, but it was nothing for him to go do something for somebody like that. Like if he just thought, hey, you need that driveway? Hold on, I got it for you. Just off the wall. Way more things than that. That was just one instance I knew about. But he would do that thing, those things. And of course you go, whoa, Dale Earnhardt, he helped someone pave the driveway because, you know, he wasn't in it for that. I mean, he came over to my house. This was when I was working at Junie Dunleavy's. We actually moved to Virginia. Well, when this house that I'm in now, when we bought it, we didn't have it had a gravel driveway. So we talked about it, and then the homeowner association, and of course, you know, new kid on the block, you have to have a cement driveway. Really? I just barely afford this house, right? I just got here, you know. Really? Why didn't someone tell me this before? So, you know, this went on back and forth. Well, then I had to go to Virginia. Well, Dale came over here and helped oversee them putting the driveway in.
Wow.
So, you know, while I wasn't here, then I had to come home for the weekends. Like, oh, whoa, look at this driveway, you know, and then hear about it from him. So
that's amazing, Doug. So Dale Earnhardt oversaw the construction of your driveway of the house you live in right now.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Man, that's amazing.
It's still the same cement.
Man, next time I'm in Charlotte, I'm gonna have to come over just to drive through the driveway.
Just put my hands on it.
Absolutely.
I'll show you the skid marks he left in the driveway then. No.
Man, that is so cool. Wow, that is so cool.
One more thing, and then we'll get to our news and notes segment here in just a moment. Doug, you know, the other big part of your career, I think that, you know, what Dominic and I remember from you is when you were working with Greg Biffle, and that was the heyday of Roush Racing. They haven't been the same since you were around, as far as I'm concerned, Doug. And what you guys were doing with Greg and that 16 team, how consistent you were, and you even had the TV time, the Subway commercials and such. I mean, what a special time that was for you guys there with Roush.
Yeah, well, I've got to go backwards just a little bit here, because there was some great moments at juniors now that I didn't quite get to because I got off on mules and chickens and cattle. But, you know, there was a year when I was there, and when I first started there, me and Jeff Hammond and Mike Hill, we kind of took responsibilities in all three of our hands.
Wow.
Well, we won 11 races that year.
11.
With Darryl.
Wow.
And then the following year was no different. Like when we were there, I mean, Darryl, he was just on it. Darryl was one of them drivers where he knew exactly what he wanted to feel, because he knew how it needed to feel for the end. And when we were on it, whether Darryl was dominating it on the track or we had a great pit stop. It rains. We win the race. It was just clicking. And we won a lot of races that year. And that was a lot of fun too. Because right now, Daryl and Stevie and ourselves, we stay in touch to this day. And we talk all the time. And, they're keeping up with Robin and all this stuff. But I had to throw that in there because that was the part of being at juniors, not only working on all the other stuff. We had an awesome race team. It had won a lot of races. When you run 11 and 12, 13 races in a year, you're doing something.
Absolutely. So, Doug, it's interesting to hear you talk about Darrell Waltrip like that. So I mean, you work with so many great legendary race car drivers and superstars that we've all watched on television. Would you? So hearing you talk about Darrell, so he knew what he wanted in a car when you were practicing. He knew how he wanted the car to enter. He knew what he wanted the car to do in the center of the corner, and then obviously he knew what kind of forward bite he wanted. So. Was Darrell was a guy that was really could read a good chassis man? I mean, he
absolutely.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. The one that followed, I feel like Darrell on that was Alan Kwiecki.
Wow.
Alan Kwiecki could during the race, and I wasn't a crew chief for Alan or anything like that. But I went and changed tires for him on the weekend, got to know him. My wife would talk to him when he's driving up and down the road, and it just people to talk to, right? But he was a good guy, right?
Yeah.
Everybody harassed him a lot, but he knew while that race was going on, he knew who pitted. He knew how many laps ago some of these guys pitted. Well, they're going to have to pit right here in a little while, but I think we can keep going on. We can go a little bit further, and then that'll set us up for the end. This was all going on inside his head, and he knew everything around him. And now that also helped a lot of, decisions being made. But he was very hands-on as far as chassis stuff goes too.
So, Doug, it's interesting, Tyler and Dominic, to hear you say that because, man, that's almost like, I mean, to be a race car driver and just keep up what the car's doing and who you're racing around. But to me, Doug, it sounds like he's being a crew chief and he's keeping up with everybody. I mean, that man was keeping up with a lot of stuff. I mean, that's hard to do. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the way he was. He was there again. I'm speaking just for what I saw in him. He was like an engineer, race car driver. It was just the way he methodically thought out all the pieces and all the pieces of the puzzle that it took to win the race. He was thinking about them way ahead of time before they got there.
Amazing, man. Amazing. Unbelievable.
So let's go ahead and circle back then about Greg. Tell me about those.
Well, I kind of lost you on some of that right there.
Had a little audio issue. Yeah. Tell me about it. Let's circle back to the Roush days, working with the Biff and everything. Tell me about that and the success you guys had.
Well, that was fun. That was a great time. I was working with Carl Edwards. When I started with Roush, I went over there to be Kyle Busch's crew chief. Well, before the season ever started, Kyle Busch decided, I'm not going to drive trucks. I'm going to go drive for Rick Hendricks in the Cup Series. And all of a sudden, we didn't have Kyle Busch, right? Well, here comes Carl Edwards. Hey, I've got a card here. I'd love to drive your car. And sure enough, here he comes. Carl, what a great guy, right? Yeah. I mean, just super, super good to work with. So we started running the truck series there and all. And we had won 3-4 races, I was like, wow, this is cool, right? Anytime you can win, I don't care what it's in. It makes you feel good.
Absolutely.
Go-kart, if it's a truck, it's a whatever. Winning's fun. That's what we all do it for. So we were doing well, and that was going really good. And then Jack asked me to go hang out at Michigan with Greg. and just observe their cup program. And so I went along and I just listened in and all that and gave my comments, my 2 cents worth or whatever. And the next thing I know, Jack offered me the job. Wow. And that's how we came about, was through the course. And I don't even know exactly what date I really started with him. It was after July, because he had won the July race at Daytona. And then after that, it just started clicking. And the way that the whole thing worked out, and Roush Racing as a whole, that was a powerhouse when we had 5 cars and all 5 of them in the chase, winning races with all of them. But it just came together for Greg. Greg seemed to deal with a car that was loose. He really wanted them to turn. So the cars, when we built them, we dealt with yaw moments and all this stuff as far as aero goes. So when they go to turn in the corner, it aided the car really wanted to be loose. Well, he was comfortable with that. And that'll always keep a car turning. Well, between that feel of the aero package and the time when Roush then teamed up with Roush Yates and became Roush Yates, well, we had a great aero package with a great driver with the best motor combination you can have, teaming up with Yates and taking Roush's, high RPM, all the stuff that Roush had been working on at the time, and put those together. Man, we came out of the box, and it's like, it was one of those deals where we knew we had good equipment. There was nothing stopping us from doing it. Anything you wanted to do, you did it. You're right. You want to change a fender, cut it off, do it. Wow. But we did it. The aero package suited him. We went out there, started winning races. You unload, and you knew you had a shot to win that race. If we played our cards, our wheels didn't come loose, we didn't anything stupid, we didn't rack, our tire wouldn't blow apart or something like that, we knew we could win a race. And we did. The one year we won 6 races. We won 12 races, I think, altogether in my time with Greg. Wow. Won Homestead 3 years in a row. In fact, I'm standing in the 3rd time we won Homestead, and I'm standing there in Victory Lane and say, you know what? This really sucks. I'm not working with them no more. They made a change. I wasn't going to be their crew chief anymore. Wow. And I'm standing there in Victory Lane going, now what am I going to do?
Well, and Dominic, I feel like we can wrap up on this before we move on to news and notes. David was talking here about the Hall of Fame resume of Doug Richert. You're not going to find somebody, it's going to be real tough anyway, that has a better track record of the drivers they work with than Doug. I mean, from Dale Earnhardt, Junior Johnson, Darrell Waltrip, Greg Biffle, Carl Edwards, Kyle
Buddy Baker.
David Starr.
Brian Vickers, yes.
The list is unbelievable, Dom.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, Doug, you might have said this. I don't know if it was on last show or maybe before we had gone on air. I think you had said you and your wife had counted. You've worked with like 70-some drivers in points.
Yeah, I think it's actually a little bit more than that.
That's amazing.
And speaking, when you were talking about the Hall of Fame stuff, I was fortunate enough to get I got inducted into the West Coast NASCAR Hall of Fame.
That's a big deal.
Went out there, and actually Darrell Waltrip announced me out there. So that was a great honor to have him announce me for the Hall of Fame, and all these things you put together, and that was the first time when I really started counting, because I just got an iPad, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be checking the iPad up there, and I started, and we're sitting there going, what year? Oh, okay, Regan Smith. Oh yeah, wait a minute, yeah, Ben Hess, and we kept going and going. All of a sudden, this list is, I still don't know to this day. Obviously, it's changed a lot more, because now I got David Starr on there. I wasn't before, like Jimmy Hill, all these ones. But yeah, it's good. I know it's between 70 and 80 at different times, whether I was just changing tires or running the team or when I was just first starting. Right. Anybody I was ever involved with, it's up there.
That's cool.
And that's pretty cool, though.
Amazing, man. Amazing career. And really, I'm kind of shocked that Doug Richert is not working. You know, I mean, you would just think that the racing teams would be lined up to have you part of their organization just because who you are. And, you know, and I feel like the Hall of Fame is not too far away. You know, the Charlotte, the Charlotte, North Carolina NASCAR Hall of Fame, you know, and but what an honor it is to be in the West Coast NASCAR Hall of Fame. And man, Doug, we're just talking about Biffle and Rouse, and I heard Dominic and Tyler talking about before. Hell, you know, I think it's movie star or commercial star or something. Didn't you make some commercials or something? You was on TV there for a while.
Oh, well, you know, I did have a little splash with that. I mean, we were in the Subway commercials. I remember when I was at juniors, we made a Budweiser commercial. Wow. And after 3 days of shooting, it was for 30-second commercial. That was like the first one I ever got involved with, right? I was like, wow, that's a lot of work for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
You know, but then being involved with the Subway stuff was a lot of fun. You know, I was in 3 different ones, I guess, with Greg, you know, and I was talking earlier, I said when Greg was driving the car, running from the cops, and I was in there with him, you know, when he spun it around and then the cop comes up to the door. But prior to that, we're sitting over on the bank and we watched the guy run into the tree. You know, that guy was suited up in that thing, like a helmet on. He looked like he was going to run the Daytona 500. Hans device and everything just to run into the tree on purpose. But, you know, safety first.
Absolutely. Safety first, man.
But, you know, the funnest one was the first one really too, when we went in. This is during the winter, and then it was the Subway over there by Concord Mills, by the Rouse shop.
Yeah.
Well, they closed the store down and we were in there shooting this commercial. Well, man, it got where we were spraying stuff inside there. And then one time Mike Hillman, he reached up and he hit the light and broke the light. And it was just crazy, everything that was going on.
Hopefully you stayed away from Jared from Subway.
Yeah. I never saw him around any of our stuff. So, but the fun one was, you know, the one that took a lot of effort was the sandwich. When Greg was throwing the sandwich in my face, you would not believe how long I sat there and had to take a sandwich to the face. And get this, it was stunt bread. They said, we want to do the stunt. Well, that was the stunt bread, was the ones that didn't have any stuff in them. That was for Greg to practice, like, you know, and when I came off a 2 and the car whipped around him, that's when he threw the sandwich. Okay. Right. So he was getting his timing down on how to throw the sandwich. So as it got going, he practiced and did all that. Well, then they gave him a live bread sandwich, you know, with lettuce and all that stuff on it, right? And they had to get the tomatoes and get in there. And you know how a tomato and lettuce always looks real luscious, you know, because it's got little sweat bubbles on it. Well, it's from the spray guns pushing the water on it, you know. So it looks just right.
No, you're giving away all their secrets, man.
Oh, it's the world of TV. But then when he throws it, they said, man, wouldn't that be so cool to have the lettuce hanging from your mustache? Now that was a whole act in itself. We trying to, like, how can we get this piece of lettuce to stick there on my mustache? Finally, it took molasses. and we got the piece of lettuce to sit on there where it would sit on there long enough. And that was right, the scene, right when they threw the sandwich in there and it went, bam. Then I was looking like dumb. Why'd you throw the sandwich at me, right? And the lettuce is hanging there on my mustache. So I said, and then they said, well, we need it to fall off. Like, so the whole time was molasses, get it hanging on there, and then you had to go. Take the lip, and you're trying to, like, real nonchalant, like, enough wind to blow the lettuce off, and that's a wrap.
That's great.
So, Doug, how many takes did it take to make that perfect, to perfect that?
Well, I don't know how many pounds of bread I took that day. It was fun, though. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed those times. And in fact, there was a couple years back when I went over and I saw Jack Roush, and I said, Jack, I got to admit, I said the worst thing I ever did was leave your team.
Really?
Yep. And it was. When I left, even though like I didn't know what I was going to be doing, but they didn't say I didn't have a job, right? But I thought I would be the bright guy and go over to Red Bull at the time, you know, because it was supposed to be the greatest thing since peanut butter, you know, when it was starting up. So, and got over there, and you know, it was an engineer-driven organization that I no longer had the luxury of changing the way that fender looked because the engineers had to do it.
Wow.
You know, so we lost some. I don't know. We lost some creativity there, I guess. But yeah, it's just a different way of doing it.
How did it work out for them?
Well,
not too good.
You know, the bad thing is, you know, coming in on the very beginning, they didn't quite have the motor program as strong as they've got now, of course. And, you know, it was hard we found ourselves hard to qualify for races.
Right.
You know, just when you're off a certain amount, down low, when you got new tires and it needs to be pulling out of the corner, we didn't have that.
Right.
Well, we had no leeway because that's when, gosh, what was there? 18 like go or go homers, you know, at the time, and you know, we're all having to qualify in. It was really tough, and we missed several races. But then we make a race and we're sitting there leading it. You know, and the fuel pump, I mean, the power steering pump goes out or something stupid.
Right.
But the races we were in, it felt like we were very competitive. It was just getting qualified.
Right. It seemed like from an outside perspective, that Red Bull team was upper management was trying to run it like Red Bull did with their F1 teams, and NASCAR and F1 were just so different at that time.
Yeah, it was, and it was new. It was new to all them. Even though, I mean, Elton Sawyer, John Pro, I mean, all of them were there. They're racers, they're drivers, they're engineers, Woods Ford, you know, they all been around. But when you take something and you make something that big with that many moving parts and pieces, and not only they're building sim programs, and, you know, everything was in the building stage. I mean, they didn't cut any corners, that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, guys, we will get to our news and notes segment in just one moment. But before we do, we want to tell you about our presenting sponsor, TicketSmarter. TicketSmarter, the official ticket resale marketplace of Worldwide Technology Raceway, where David won in 2004. They'll also be the presenting sponsor of the Cup race at Worldwide Technology Raceway coming up in just a couple weeks in St. Louis. Fans can get tickets to any type of event, including sports, concerts, and theater productions. TicketSmarter is committed to helping those in need by donating $1 from every transaction to various charity organizations. Head over to TicketSmarter.com to find tickets for upcoming events. That's TicketSmarter.com. Dominic, we mentioned F1 there, and speaking of which, it was a big weekend in American motorsports, not just in NASCAR.
Absolutely. In American motorsports, not only do we have the NASCAR Cup race at Darlington, but the Formula One Grand Prix out in Miami. And I've got to tell you what, looking at the numbers, and this is per Adam Stern with the Sports Business Journal, the NASCAR race, of course, the most watched motorsport event in the country this weekend, usually is the case, but Tyler, not by that much. According to Adam Stern and the information that he put out on Tuesday, May 10th, NASCAR still edged out F1, but the viewership was like by less than 3/100ths of a million. So that would be about 30,000 viewers, 2.61 million viewers for the NASCAR race compared to the 2.58 million viewers of the F1 race. Arguably to say, Tyler and David, that Formula One certainly has a fan base here, and going head to head with NASCAR, I think it was a good gauge to see, okay, how popular is F1 compared to NASCAR. I got to say, there's a lot of hype around F1 right now, and with the race in Vegas next year, it's very interesting to see how neck and neck it was.
Well, and it is worth noting, there is one caveat to that the F1 race was on broadcast television. It was on ABC, which you can watch for free, as opposed to the Cup race was on FS1, which you have to have cable or satellite. So that's a difference of about 20 million homes had more access to watch the F1 race as opposed to the Cup race on Sunday. But nonetheless, David, an impressive number from F1 head-to-head with NASCAR. And we saw Jeff Gordon, Danica Patrick, they were out there and such.
Tom Brady
was there, the newest Fox Sports employee, the $37 million man. Yeah. But I look at it, David, I don't know about you, but, sure it went head-to-head with NASCAR. I get that. That's going to rub some folks the wrong way, but, you can't have everything. But this is a win for all the motorsports. If F1's doing well, that's good for NASCAR.
Well, I think it is. I mean, you got Tom Brady there at the F1 race in Miami. And, and Tyler, you're right, man. It's just good for all forms of auto racing. You know what I mean? And when you got all these superstars, somebody said Michael Trahan was there. You got Strahan and
Michael Jordan.
Man, all these stars and all the people that viewed into it. I think it really it helps American auto racing. You know what I mean? Whether it's IndyCar, drag racing, NASCAR, I think it's just good for auto racing in general in America. You know what I mean? So I think it's all great. And I don't really follow Formula One racing that much. Very little. But I talk to a lot of people, and they ask me, "Hey, are you watching the Netflix movie about F1? You know what I mean?" I'm not. They said, "Oh my God, if you watch one episode, it just grabs you, and we can't stop watching it." You know what I mean? And I think it's really built their fan base in America. There's a lot of people that talk about that. I have not seen it, and maybe you guys have.
Doug, what's been your takeaways? What do you make of what F1 did this weekend out there in Miami?
Well, I'm kind of like David. I haven't really followed it and all, but I did tune in on some of that documentary type stuff that was out there about the F1 stuff. And I watched that a little bit. I worked with Gunther Steiner that runs the Haas program over there for him. I worked with him at Red Bull. He was there. So I kind of knew him a little bit. So I see his face pop up there every now and then, and, about their team and stuff like that. So I pay attention to it in that way. But, I've never been to an F1 race myself. I would like to. I think it's always interesting to see how other organizations go about, I don't know. We're sponsor driven. We're a visual race team, visibility. We help people sell their product, and they have hospitality short of none from what I've heard on how they do and what they do for their guests and their sponsors, and then, the experience that they can get the same as coming to, a NASCAR event and sitting on a pit box sometimes. It's different levels of that, but they're very similar platforms. I'm sure there's a lot of B2B business on the F1 side as well as I've witnessed B2B business on the NASCAR side. When you pull a group of high profile companies, big companies, and pull them all in one place, and there's usually a lot of good that comes out of that.
Dominic, to me, one of the things that also stood out, what F1 is doing that I think NASCAR should take notes from is attracting that younger audience in the 18 to 49 demographic, which is very important for advertisers. This past weekend, F1 had 735,000 viewers. NASCAR had 517,000 viewers. Over 200,000 more young people, 18 to 49, watched F1 than they did NASCAR this past weekend. They're doing something right to reach that younger base.
They certainly are. And Tyler, I think you can attest to this as a kid, thinking back and having Cartoon Network sponsored cars, or having animated figures on the cars like the Looney Tunes or SpongeBob SquarePants, or having more interactiveness with Cartoon Network itself and doing commercials and gearing towards kids. I remember a lot of that, even down to, heck, Hot Wheels cars. and any kind of die casting McDonald's Happy Meals. We've gotten away from that. I think that would be a great way to appeal. That certainly made me interested in the sport as a 5-6-year-old tyke in New Mexico.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I mean, the video games and such, I mean, you know, if I'm going to be honest here, you know, when it comes to the video games, the marketing, F1's doing a better job of appealing to the younger demographic than NASCAR is right now. You know, I'm still a NASCAR fan through and through, Dom, but I had my eyes on that F1 race. I was intrigued, and I like their game plan of expanding the U.S. with this Vegas race next year, going to 3 races. We've seen COTA, now Miami, and Vegas here. I mean, I love their strategy.
F1 knows there's a big market in the U.S., untapped potential, and they're tapping into that.
Yeah, for sure. What else going on, Dominic?
Well, a few days ago, the NASCAR 2023 Hall of Fame class was revealed. In 2023, Matt Kenseth, 39-time race winner and 2003 Cup Series champion, will be among the 3 inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Kirk Shelmerdine, a 4-time Cup Series crew chief and 46 race winner with Dale Earnhardt. He won the 86, 87, 90, and 1991 championships with the Man in Black. Also had a driving career, but being inducted for his driving and his crew chiefing abilities. And then Herschel McGriff on the Pioneer ballot. Herschel ran in the Cup Series in the 1960s, as late as 1994. Guys even ran a K&N West race as recent as 2018 at the tender age of 90 years old. So definitely a great class that we're inducting in 2023. But I got to be honest with you guys. I'm a little bummed our guy Doug wasn't on the finals list. I'm a little bummed that Jeff Bodine was not on the finals list. I think there's a lot that can still be done going forward, but nonetheless, a very deserving class.
Well, the NASCAR Hall of Fame is still very young, too. I mean, it's going to take some time to get some of these guys in. But, Doug, what do you make of this Hall of Fame class? We mentioned you were at Roush right there during some of the best days of Matt Kenseth.
Yeah, that was good. They were on their game, also. And he was one of those drivers we always talk back and forth with. But he liked his car completely different than the aero package than Greg did. But they could both go out there and win.
Isn't that amazing?
It's whatever you're comfortable with. I got a little idea, maybe the young fan base you were just talking about, the F1 and all that. Maybe some of the NASCAR kids are a little upset that Eminem's not going to be there next year.
Maybe you're onto something there.
That's a colorful car and all that. And, well, oh, wait a minute. I'm 62, but I like M&Ms.
Yeah. David, that Hall of Fame class, Matt Kenseth, for me, what stands out about Matt getting in is, his time at Roush was impressive. But that second chapter, when he went to JGR, it felt like he had a chip on his shoulder. He was trying to prove something, and he was spectacular at JGR like he was at Roush.
Hey, man, Matt, he just, and Doug would tell you he's just a great race car driver. You get him in the right circumstances, the right equipment, the right engines, but man, Matt was just great. Everything he got in, he'd win. And it was amazing, and well-deserved to be in the Hall of Fame. I think of some other ones that aren't there yet that I would have thought would have been in there by now. But, Matt Kenseth's well-deserved, and congratulations to him. And Kurt Shelmerdine, I hear us talk about Kurt, and it just, I don't know why Doug Richert's not on the ballot. You know what I mean? And it's kind of wild to me, but it's cool to see these people that we know. Doug worked with Matt Kenseth for years, and obviously Kurt. And it's cool to see him being inducted into the Hall of Fame. I think it's well-deserved, and it's pretty cool to see it.
Dom, you were mentioning we got to get Doug in there, Jeff Bodine. The next few Hall of Fame classes, I believe Jimmy Johnson's going to be eligible next year, right? Who are some of the other names that are going to be coming up soon?
Yeah, Jimmy Johnson's going to certainly be eligible. We all know he'll be a first-time ballot Hall of Famer.
Better be unanimous.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you look at 7 wins, 82 wins, 7 championships, and the tenure that he had, Hendrick Motorsports, 1 car, 1 crew chief for most of his entire career. I mean, I would think, too, Chad Knaus could be on that first ballot Hall of Fame with Johnson. The fact that he's no longer a crew chief and working in his more managerial role at Hendrick Motorsports, maybe those two are going to be first ballot Hall of Famers. And I even look too, Tyler. I look at some of these guys that are past champions, and correct me, fans, if I'm wrong, but I think Bill Rexford, the 1950 champion, is the only one that is not a past champion, not part of the NASCAR Hall of Fame. I feel like he should be very deserving. Any past champion of the Cup Series should be in the Hall of Fame. And I think to take that a step further too, Tyler, and we've talked about this before, but it's not really a stat hall, but I think a good gauge of a Hall of Fame is, can you tell the history of that sport or that industry without that person? And there's your measuring stick to see if that person is worthy to be in that Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely. You brought up a good point there, Dominic.
David, any names that come to mind to you in the future besides who we mentioned and who should be in the Hall of Fame?
Well, I mean, there's so many, there's so many great drivers and crew chiefs and team owners, and they've really made a big impact on the sport over the years. And, it's just, so many, is Buddy Baker and is Buddy Baker in the Hall of Fame?
I don't believe so.
You know what I mean? I mean, there's just so many, so, the panel that chooses who the ballots are and who's going to be chosen to go into the Hall of Fame. That's a tough job, and I don't know who they are. I'm sure there are, a lot of people spread out, through our industry.
Right.
But man, it's a tough job, but there's definitely lots. We have a guest here with us today that's deserving to be in there, and so many others that aren't in there yet. But hey, what an honor it is. I mean, to win all the championships, win races, and do what everybody's done. But I think, I think it would mean everything to Doug, just to be a Hall of Famer in any kind of industry, to be put in that category is just, God, I think that's the biggest honor you could ever have.
Yeah. I think like promoters of the sport too, like Eddie Gossage probably is a
Wheeler.
Hall of Fame.
Yeah, absolutely.
Humpy Wheeler's a good one.
Absolutely. There's so many.
Oh yeah.
And I thought about this too, Tyler. What about somebody like Tim Richmond or Neil Bonnet? Maybe they didn't have the longevity that a lot of these other guys had, but certainly worthy of the history in the sport, and certainly worthy of a case of being in the Hall of Fame someday.
Yeah.
It's a shame that Tim Richmond is just overshadowed by the final days.
Yes.
But I think I can sit here and say that he would have been I think he would have been a threat for Dale at the time, as far as winning his championships. I think Tim Richmond could have done the same thing, but he got a little spun out, and to be gone and out of it like he did, and then come back and win the race. And there's some stories there. And I spent time with him because he was my neighbor. He just lived down the street from me here. He had a place on the lake, and I had the honor of going and hanging out with this guy. And he was a no frills, just wide open guy, right? If he wanted to do it, he did it. You got a fast boat, we out there. It's a jet boat with freaking pipes out the back. Whoa! That's how he was. He was at the racetrack. He shows up in the big old motorhome. Now it's the industry standard. Come in on his bike, have leathers on. He was just that guy. You look at the Tim Richmond books and stuff. You look at the cover. That was Tim Richmond. I knew him. We hung out with him. But on the other hand, he was down to earth like everybody else. We'd fix him an egg sandwich, and because I'd always go to the track real early, and drivers didn't have to go early, and Robin didn't have to get up early. So Robin would ride with Tim to the track, and she made him an egg sandwich one time, and they laughed like crazy because when he took a bite of that sandwich, it was still a runny yolk, and it ran all down his face. That was their laugh for going to the racetrack, right? But here I am. I'm rambling again because I just all of a sudden I thought about a story, right? But I got one more.
Good.
I got one more.
That's a great one, Doug.
That's good.
Now,
guys, real quick before we move on to our Ask David segment, I want to ask you, looking ahead this weekend at Kansas, Dominic, who are you watching for? We've had 10 winners already, and there's still 6 playoff spots available there.
Well, we're going to have 8 past winners that have won a Kansas points awarding race in the field Sunday. And Greg Biffle would have been the ninth had he been part of the field on Sunday, but he's not entered. But Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano have each won 3 times there. I look at one of those guys. I mean, Logano off the win. Kevin Harvick, one of the longest losing streaks of his career, finished runner-up in this race last year. And I look at Kyle Busch, who's won there twice. Kansas was the Achilles heel for him for a long time. And yet he goes out and does well there as of recent. Martin Truex Jr. always good. I think Brad Keselowski needs a good showing, and all those guys have won twice there. But I mean, I look at the past history here, and I think that's really important to bring up because they've won there 3 times for a reason. They're good there consistently, and I would think Hamlin, Harvick, or Logano, your winner's very likely to come out of that.
Yeah, give me one name, Don.
I'm going to go Kevin Harvick again. I know I was wrong last week, and Harvick got 5th, but Harvick gets it done this weekend in Kansas.
I'm going to go with another guy that's been really good at Kansas. Martin Truex Jr. is the guy I'm watching for. I think Truex gets it done. And you could argue Kansas is maybe his best racetrack on the entire circuit. He has been really good there over the years. I'll go with Martin. David, how about you?
Man, you know, I think William Byron has something to prove. He's mad. He's hot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, you can't count out that William Byron and then Ross Chastain. I mean, this guy's on fire. I would never expected to see him as dominant as he was this past weekend. But God, it's amazing what he's doing. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's hard to it's hard to pick one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Chase Elliott. Chase. He won a couple weeks ago and had some issues this past weekend, but came out at the end of the race with a decent finish. But it's so hard to choose who's going to win the race. I love to see Harvick get back into victory lane. He's had a long dry spell, but man, I know it's going to be a great race. I know that, and I'd love to see Kevin Harvick back in victory lane.
How about you, Doug? What do you think about this weekend's race?
Well, but right before you said it yourself there with Trackhouse Race, and either one of them cars, I mean, every week, one of them's right there, Ross Chastain more than the other. But, Kyle Larson's still lurking around the corner there.
Absolutely.
That guy could still show up when he needs to. And Hendrick's organization is, overall is running really well. And I think he could come into play.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think so.
You can't ever count him out.
No, definitely not. Our Ask David segment coming up in just a moment. Let's go racing with David Starr, presented by TicketSmarter. TicketSmarter came aboard as the primary sponsor this year on David's 08 Ford Mustang, and we want to tell you a little bit about what they do. TicketSmarter is a national ticket resale marketplace with tickets to over 125,000 live events, including NASCAR and other forms of motorsports. Fans can get tickets to every NASCAR Cup, Xfinity, and Camping World Truck Series race throughout the season. Visit TicketSmarter.com for more, and that's TicketSmarter.com. Our first question from the inbox today comes from Melissa, and it is for both David and Doug. And Alyssa wants to know, guys, what's your go-to Subway sandwich?
One that doesn't hit you in the face.
That's a good one, Doug.
I will say though, I'll start off. When I do usually go to a Subway, I usually get the meatball sandwich.
The meatball sub. Good choice.
Man, I'm a steak guy myself, Doug. On the wheat bread, American cheese, mayonnaise, lettuce, pickles, man, a little salt and pepper. Can't beat it, dude. Every time. I'm a creature of habit, but I love Subway, no doubt about it.
Give me that cold cut combo with the bread toasted. That was the best thing Subway ever did, was allow you to start toasting the bread. I like those cookies too. Those dark chocolate cookies, those are real good. Don, what do you order at the Subway?
Man, I love it when it's in season. A bowl of the broccoli cheddar soup. Now, it's not on the menu year round, but that broccoli cheddar soup is always a good compliment to a sandwich. And pre-pandemic, I really enjoyed the roast beef with the shredded cheese on it, some bell pepper, onion, tomato. Oh boy, what a great sandwich. In New Mexico, of course, you got to add green chili to it. So it would have the 12-inch on roast beef, wheat. I loved it. It was a great sandwich.
Wait, so did the pandemic stop you from eating Subways?
Not necessarily that, but I've noticed the sliced roast beef that they used to have, at least the locations I've been to here in New Mexico, don't carry it anymore. So I don't know if that's a regional thing or if it's a nationwide issue or a worldwide issue, but they don't offer the roast beef that they used to offer.
Okay, bring back the roast beef. Wasn't expecting to have that conversation on today's show, but here we are. Bring back the roast beef to Subway. I had no idea it was missing.
Where's the beef?
Yeah, where's the beef?
Where's the beef?
At Arby's.
Where's the beef? I guess it's a Taco Bell.
Taco Bell or Arby's? Arby's.
I like Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Hey, when it all fails, if you want a good hamburger, you just go to Whataburger, dude.
That's true. One time, Dominic.
Good answer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dominic probably remembers this too. This is about 2 years ago. Dominic was over at my apartment when I was living in Kansas, and we were just hanging out one night. We went to like a high school football game or something, and it's like 11:30 at night, and I get a phone call from David. David called me. He's like, "Buddy, what are you doing?" I said, "Eating Subway. What are you doing?" I said, "I'm eating Taco Bell. What are you doing?" He said, "Well, not too much better. I'm in the drive-thru at Wendy's."
Fast food. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Got to eat somewhere late at night. The next question, this one is for Doug, and it comes from Brad. Doug, Brad wants to know, of all the drivers you worked with, who was your favorite? Not necessarily the best, but who was your favorite driver you worked with? And you can't say David Starr.
Golly, you know, when you work with that many, there's not just one, right? Because each driver's got a different thing that they brought to the light, I guess. You know, it's hard to say. You know, different people's temperaments and their personalities and all that has a lot to do with what you take away from something. The enjoyment of either working, competing, and ending up at the end of the day. But I guess one of the favorite ones, as far as I don't care what kind of day I had, we could have been leading the whole race, blow a tire, hit the wall. Neil Bonnet would come over after that race. Doug, good job, man. You guys did a really good job. And see you next week. I guess I'll say Neil Bonnet.
Wow.
David, I guess for you then, along the same terms, yours would be teammates. Who were some of your favorite just teammates, some of the good guys you were around?
Man, one of them, you know, and people might be surprised, but one of my favorite teammates was Mike Skinner. You know, because Skinner was such a, man, he just, you know, you're not going to get somebody that's more passionate about winning and has won a lot, and the stories, and you know, I learned a lot. I paid a lot of attention to Mike, and it was great being his teammate at Randy Moss Motorsports. But man, we were great friends and hard competitors. He had told me one time, he said, "God dang it, I want to hate you. I want to hate you because you raced me so freaking hard, but you raced me so clean." You know what I mean? So but man, we were always racing, you know, we raced pretty hard together, but what a great guy Mike is, and his wife, Angie. He was just a tough competitor, obviously, teammate to the late great Dale Earnhardt, you know, at Richard Childress Racing. But my favorite would be Mike Skinner.
I feel like Skinner too would have been a good guy just to hang out with off the track.
He was, and it kind of like hearing Doug talk about the different drivers, you know, Skinner. You know, Skinner, he's a hot mess. You know what I mean? He played his guitar, he sung, and you know, he had the best wine. He lived at large, you know, and but you know, everybody does. They like
okay, I gotta tell you a real quick Skinner story.
All right, give it to me, Doug.
So I went back and I was helping Mike Skinner on his truck.
Yeah.
I forget which year. Well, it just so happened to be the same year that I was doing some commentating from the booth for Speed Channel. So we went to Vegas. I'm working on the truck. We get it all ready to go, and gets ready to go qualify. And then I run up to the booth. We start doing the deal, and I'm up in the booth, and they're running the race. So, and I'm listening to them, you know, but talking about the race, all this stuff. We win the race. And I had to run to victory lane after we got through the TV just to say I could be there. Sorry.
Has that ever happened before? Man, that's nuts, dude.
Yeah, it was just, you know, because it was like work, you know, the whole thing getting ready to go. You get there, and then you go up in the booth, and Now you're watching it go around and talking about everything else too. And whoa, we won. Can I go to Victory Lane?
He may have been a little biased in the booth that day.
Yeah. I hate that didn't work out. I wish I could have worked that out.
Yeah.
I like talking about it.
Yeah, that's cool though. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? You could have been like Tom Brady making now his $37 million from Fox. You know, you never know.
Hey, you know,
Guys,
Yeah, that's right.
Before we go, let's go around the room real quick. Doug, what's going on with you? Where can people keep up with you and see what's happening in your world?
Well, I wish there was a way to contact other than giving out my cell phone number.
555-555.
Yeah. Well, I mean, pretty much there's anybody in racing is, got a little contact with me or whatever. I don't really have a website or anything like that. I mean, you can always send an email to dtrichert@me.com. If somebody would like to try to get a hold of me, that maybe they want to talk to me about a job, or maybe they want me to build you an island for your kitchen or some live edge shelves. It doesn't matter. I can do it all.
Somebody hire Doug Richert. Let's make that happen off this show. Dominic, what's going on with you, man?
Well, I can breathe a lot better. Last week, I told you guys on the show we were gearing up for the prom here in town. For those who don't know, I work as a high school teacher, and I was the class sponsor. So can definitely breathe after last week and putting that on. And Tyler just kind of like, it makes me feel old, right? Because 10 years ago, we were going to prom, school dances, and now I'm old enough to chaperone.
Hey, Dom, you ought to be glad you don't have people like Doug and myself that were students that you were going to chaperone.
I'd be one rowdy class. I would love that challenge. Absolutely.
Or maybe even Tyler.
Oh, man. Tyler would be the dunce in the back with the little cone and everything in the corner.
Hey, no. I'm the one looking for the baddies, as they said.
Oh, yeah, probably. But yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Sucks that we're not going to be there out there in Kansas, Tyler and I, but we'll watch from afar and we'll have remote coverage like we always do, and look forward to being at Texas in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it feels weird. I'm not going to be at Kansas, and I don't think I'm going to be at Texas next week either. But nonetheless, I'll be watching and rooting everybody on. And I know that you do a great job, Dominic, and certainly rooting on David as well. David, you got a weekend at home as Xfinity's off this weekend, not racing at Kansas, but then a big weekend for you next week with the Texas race, and you got some racing schools in between too.
Man, just our team, Texas High Performance Driving School, will be busy at Texas Motor Speedway this weekend with the C10 Chevrolet Nationals there, giving race car rides, and our limousine will be running, and then getting ready for the Texas race the following weeks. Excited. I didn't mention it earlier, but in Darlington this past weekend, man, our TicketSmarter Ford Mustang was awesome. And man, it's like, I think I ran my fastest lap on lap 98 or 99, and we had a great car. And it's like, Doug, somebody flipped a light switch on me, man. And next thing you know, I couldn't run wide open and turn in the middle of 1 and 2. I was so freaking loose and couldn't get off turn 2. And man, I had a great car for 100 laps. In the last 47 laps, it was night and day difference. And that was like shocking. And we found out yesterday, I was in Charlotte yesterday at the shop, and one of the guys from Champions had called and sent some pictures and said, "Hey man, your valve stem's busted off on the for the interliner. So our right rear interliner was out of air, and no wonder it was loose. You know what I mean? And so it drove different. But man, we had it's a shame, and we talk about it all the time. We've had a fast race car. Our TicketSmarter Ford Mustang has been awesome, but just little bad luck, So I'm looking forward to getting back to Texas and racing here at my hometown, and getting back in that car and see if we can put it all together and get us a great finish here soon.
Yeah, certainly looking forward to that. Guys, we got to go. As always, subscribe to Let's Go Racing with David Starr. New episodes out each and every Wednesday at Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and on YouTube. Leave us that 5-star review, or don't leave us one at all. Hit the like button as well. We certainly would appreciate it. You can find us on social media, Twitter @StarPodcast, Facebook.com/David Starr Podcast, and by email, davidstarpodcast@gmail.com. We'll put the checkered flag out on this episode. We'll see you right back here next week here on Let's Go Racing. Dominic Aragon, David Starr, Doug Richert,